Hello everyone. So throughout January, I've been streaming. This video is a little snippet where I basically took the time at the end of the stream to sort of do a little impromptu tutorial about how I light my characters procedurally in Blender. I hope you enjoy it. Actually, while we're here, why don't I show off? There's one other thing. This isn't really like something I do quite yet usually, but okay. Okay, so we've got our materials. I'm gonna hide the world opacity. Create a new material, we'll call that one big lizard. Get rid of the principled, diffuse, and I want the attribute. So that's there. So like we've already got like some shading on it. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to pre-light the texture with a Zenithil highlight. Like if you guys know anything about painting like Warhammer minis or Dungeons and Dragons minis, basic premise is you're hitting the top of the model with a light. And so everything underneath is going to be shadow. So the way I like to do that is we're in tutorial mode now. I grab a input geometry node and go to the normal. So the great thing about the normal is, as you can see, it's represented in 3 different colors, red, green, and blue, that mix to create like purple, yellow, etc., etc. And you can separate those into their different colors. So X is the X-axis, Y is the Y-axis, and Z is the Z-axis. So knowing this, we can actually use all of these different like coordinate systems as a means to sort of help us like do some procedural stuff in Blender. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the mic there. I'm going to use the Z-axis because I need it to be the Zenithil highlight. And I'm going to do this. I want to add 1. So that way the bottom is black, the top is white, except the problem is the top is probably like above white. So I'm going to do a multiply, and I'm going to multiply that by 0.5. So now it's more of a gradient. So the very, very tip top is 1 and the very bottom is 0. This is pretty much how I like to get this. There are other things that we can do. So for instance, I'm just going to get a color mix RGB so that we can keep these outputs over here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, change this to a multiply add, and what I want to do is I want to multiply it by -1 and add 1. So that looks like this. It's inverted basically. That's all I did is invert it. You could technically also get the like color invert color, but I'm a weirdo. I like the multiply add. Basically, if you think about it, it's like the number is like 0 to 1, and then we multiply it by -1, so now it's 0 to -1, and then you add 1, so now it's 0 to 1, which just inverts it. Yeah, anyways. Math. Okay, and then one more thing is I like to add a mapping node here. So that way, if I want to, I actually have more control and I can like rotate the direction of it. I'm going to keep this here, and then this one, I don't actually know. Well, I'll just put this. And so this is pretty much all I need. Grab all this, press Control G, and we've essentially created a new node. This is our node here. Get rid of that. So we've got the rotation value here if we need it, and then we've got the 2 output values. So in our node, we're going to leave rotation as is. The top value is going to be highlight. I think that's right. And then the bottom value will be shadow. Let me see. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So now that we have that, we can basically do what we need with it, right? So I've got the color here, and you can see it's flat because I'm not even putting it through the diffuse. And then I can take this, let's do a hue saturation value, pop that into the color, and then we can take the shadow, put that into the factor, because it's essentially a mask is what we're doing here. And I can bring these values down, so like value to like 0.5. See, I'm getting a bit of a shadow. Saturation like 1.5. That might be a bit too much, 1.25. Let's bring the saturation down to like 0.25. There we go. So now I've got like a little bit of a shadow on the underside of my guy. We can refine that a little bit more just by using like a color ramp or a color curve, or sorry, not a color curve, a float curve. So you can kind of change the way that looks. You can, you know, if you want to clip the values, you can do something like this. So the hue isn't shifting. What's happening is we're kind of getting like a little bit of banding just because that's how like the color's working. But it's still within the hue that I set here because I haven't changed the hue. So it's just a deeper, more saturated version of this color. So I actually just want to clip the highlights a little bit. And then maybe darken it a little bit, I guess. So before and after. It's just a slight amount of depth. And that's essentially just in the texture. It's not getting any of that from the lighting in the scene. And you can do the same thing with a highlight. So if I were to sort of go, I guess we could do another hue saturation. And then in this case, I would want to bring the value up by like 1.25 and then the saturation down to like 0.95, I guess. We can do the highlight into the factor. I think for this guy also, since a lot of the colors are so bright, I don't know if I would want to include the highlight in here, especially here. This one's losing a little bit too much. So maybe the saturation needs to be like 0.975. So that's a little bit, or maybe, I don't know, it's probably like 0.99. Yeah, and then, so you still get some of that highlight, but not quite. Anyways, yeah, so before, after, before, after. And that's all just using a procedural node and like a couple hue saturation. Like we literally haven't even put this, you know, like we can just grab this and that's what it looks like afterwards. So now this would be a little bit closer to like what you would see in the game. I just wanted to add on here, this is a very good way of just sort of laying the foundation for what would later become your actual texture painting. I don't use this lighting as like a final shadow in my Zenithil highlight. I actually like to go in and modify stuff, and what I end up with usually looks quite a bit different, but this as a baseline is pretty good for what I need it to be. I hope that video was helpful for you. I hope you learned a lot. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you have any questions or anything you want to say, feel free to comment down below. Subscribe, of course, if you want to see more videos like this. You can also catch me streaming at the moment on Wednesdays and Fridays at either 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Those are pretty fun. Last stream I did was an animating Stella stream, and it was a really good time. I actually get a lot of stuff done in these streams, so I really see myself doing more of them going forwards. If you want to support me, there's a link to my Ko-fi down below. But of course, the best value is going to be my Patreon, where there are extended devlogs. So yeah, I'll see you either in a stream or in the next video. Bye.
Super trooper, super trooper, super trooper, and he sells soup.